As the tension mounted, Kamsi took a drastic step. She sent the bridesmaid a gift, pretending it was from her long-distance boyfriend. The package contained a box of cake and chocolates, along with a note that read, "To you, my love." Believing the gift was from her boyfriend, the bridesmaid ate the cake, not realizing it was poisoned. She died alone in her apartment, her body left undiscovered for 3 days. It was a fresh week. Bayo and Sharon headed to the hospital. Bayo shyly followed Sharon. The doctor informed them that there was nothing physically wrong with Sharon, but she was traumatized, requiring therapeutic sessions. Bayo, without hesitation, paid for the sessions, though he knew it would be the beginning of a long and painful journey. As they drove back home, a call from Bayo's mother shattered the fragile silence. The phone was on speaker, and Bayo's mother wasted no time in voicing her disgust. "Bayo, what kind of women do you meet? Barely 24 hours of marriage, and she's opening her legs for another man." Sharon, sitting quietly next to Bayo, had tears rolling down her cheeks as Bayo tried to interrupt his mother, but the damage was already done. His mother continued to berate Sharon, calling her an abomination, and even went so far as to say that she was no longer welcome in their family. When they got home, Bayo and Sharon sat quietly, lost in their thoughts. Bayo's heart was heavy with confusion and anger, while Sharon was drowning in shame and sorrow. They sat in different corners of the room, avoiding eye contact, knowing that their marriage had already started to crumble. Days passed, and Bayo stood by Sharon, taking her to therapy sessions as if out of obligation rather than love. He waited silently in the hospital lobby while Sharon attended her sessions. One day, while sitting in the waiting area, he overheard 2 women talking about him. "That's the husband of the bride who was raped," one woman whispered to her friend. Bayo's heart sank as the embarrassment weighed heavily on him. The news had gone viral, and people everywhere seemed to know about the unfortunate incident. On the drive home, Bayo didn't say a word to Sharon. The silence between them was louder than ever, and though Sharon longed for him to say something, anything, Bayo had already begun to emotionally distance himself. That night, something changed in Bayo. His anger and frustration boiled over, and though he didn't lash out at Sharon, his attitude toward her shifted. He started coming home late, refusing to sleep in the same room as her, and avoided her at all costs. Sharon tried to mend their broken relationship, cooking his favorite meals and making efforts to talk, but Bayo was no longer interested. He refused to touch her, let alone eat the food she prepared. His heart had already found solace elsewhere, in Kamsi. Kamsi, who he had once rejected because of genetic compatibility, was now his peace of mind. Kamsi started spending more time with Bayo, offering comfort that Sharon couldn't. As Bayo drifted further away from Sharon, Kamsi stepped in, not only comforting Bayo but also offering Sharon false reassurances. "Bayo will come around," Kamsi told Sharon sweetly. "He's just upset about everything that's happened." But Kamsi's words were hollow, for she was entangled in an affair with Bayo while simultaneously betraying her best friend by sleeping with her man. Sharon remained oblivious to Kamsi's deceit, still hoping that her marriage could be salvaged. One day, Sharon discovered she was pregnant. She hadn't realized it earlier due to the nature of her cryptic pregnancy, but by the time she found out, she was already 7 months along. Sharon refused to consider aborting the child, even though her situation with Bayo was deteriorating by the day. Bayo's mother, upon learning of the pregnancy, was enraged. She visited Bayo, demanding that he chase Sharon away and called the unborn child illegitimate. "You are not my son's wife," she shouted, reminding Sharon that they had already returned her bride price to her family, though Sharon's mother had refused to accept it. They had thrown the money on her late father's grave in an act of spite. With nowhere else to turn, Sharon left Bayo's home, seeking refuge with her mother, who promised to stand by her through thick and thin. Sharon gave birth to a healthy baby boy, and though her heart was broken, she found strength in her child. As Sharon adjusted to life as a single mother, The chief bridesmaid from her wedding began piecing together the events of that fateful night. She started to suspect that Kamsi had played a role in what happened to Sharon. After much thought, the bridesmaid decided to confront Kamsi, but Kamsi, ever the skilled manipulator, denied any involvement. However, behind closed doors, Kamsi was beginning to panic. She contacted the man who had raped Sharon, pleading with him to eliminate the bridesmaid before she uncovered the truth. But the man refused. He was haunted by what he had done to Sharon and was desperate to distance himself from the crime. Kamsi's time was running out, and her desperation led her to stalk the chief bridesmaid, determined to silence her by any means necessary. Meanwhile, the bridesmaid, unaware of the danger she was in, tried to reach out to Sharon to explain what she had seen on the wedding night. But each time she attempted to speak to Sharon, Bayo would interrupt with harsh words and cruel accusations, making it nearly impossible for her to get through. As the tension mounted, Kamsi took a drastic step. She sent the bridesmaid a gift, pretending it was from her long-distance boyfriend. The package contained a box of cake and chocolates, along with a note that read, "To you, my love." Believing the gift was from her boyfriend, the bridesmaid ate the cake, not realizing it was poisoned. She died alone in her apartment, her body left undiscovered for 3 days. By the time the police found her, the stench of death had already filled the building. The investigation into her death was ongoing, but no one suspected Kamsi yet. Bayo began seeking out other women, desperate to drown his trauma in meaningless relationships. He was a broken man, lost in the wreckage of his own life. Sharon, on the other hand, found peace in raising her son. Though her heart still ached for the life she had lost, she poured all her love and attention into her child. One day, while picking her son up from school, a young man named Peterson offered them a ride. Sharon was hesitant at first, but eventually accepted. From that day on, Peterson became a fixture in their lives. He was kind to Sharon, and her son adored him. They spent time together at the park, and for the first time in a long while, Sharon felt a sense of normalcy. People often remarked that her son resembled Peterson, but Sharon saw no resemblance. Peterson, who had become a father figure to her son, seemed too good to be true, and Sharon wasn't ready to give her heart to another man, not after everything she had been through. As Sharon spent more time with the young man, she found herself slowly opening up to him. He was patient, understanding, and never pressured her for more than she was willing to give. One evening, after a particularly stressful day at work, Peterson invited her out for dinner. Sharon reluctantly agreed, and to her surprise, she had a wonderful time. They laughed, talked about their lives, and for the first time in a long time, Sharon felt a sense of joy. When they returned home, Peterson asked Sharon if she would consider being more than friends. But Sharon, still haunted by the trauma of her past, refused. She wasn't ready for another relationship, content to remain a single mother and protect her heart from further pain. That night, however, Sharon found herself in a state of emotional turmoil. She cried as she thought about everything she had been through, the betrayal, the abandonment, the loneliness. In a moment of weakness, she called Peterson and invited him over. They shared a bottle of wine, and one thing led to another. Sharon woke up the next morning with regret heavy in her chest. She had allowed herself to be vulnerable, and now she felt taken advantage of. When she confronted him, he denied any wrongdoing. "You called me," he said softly. "You asked for it." He apologized, but what shocked Sharon the most was the tattoo on his chest, a tattoo she had seen once before on the night she was raped. Sharon's mind raced as she looked at the tattoo on the man's chest. It looked exactly like the one she had seen before, and a terrifying thought struck her. Was this the man who had raped her on her wedding night? She stepped back, her voice shaking. "Who are you? Why do you have that tattoo?" The man, shocked by her reaction, stammered, "Sharon, what do you mean?" But Sharon couldn't trust herself anymore. Was she imagining things? Or was he really the person who had hurt her that night? She quickly grabbed her things and ran out of the apartment, leaving him standing there, confused and upset. After that day, Sharon distanced herself from Peterson. She never allowed him to see her or her son, Kelvin. Peterson tried everything to reach out, but nothing worked. Kelvin often cried, missing Peterson, whom he called father. This made things even more confusing for Sharon. Kelvin was very selective about who he let into his space. He had bonded so well with Peterson from the first day they met. It broke Sharon's heart when Kelvin fell ill and refused to eat or take his medicine. Sharon's mother noticed the tension and urged her to let Kelvin see Peterson. Finally, Sharon relented. When Peterson saw Kelvin, he hugged him tightly and promised he wouldn't leave again. "If only your mom wouldn't keep kicking me out," he added sadly. That night, after Peterson had put Kelvin to bed, he found Sharon sitting quietly in the kitchen, drinking alcohol. "Unless something wrong, you can talk to me," he said softly. But Sharon was filled with anger. "You were at the Crimson Hotel on October 10th, weren't you?" she asked. Peterson shook his head. "No, I wasn't." "Do you know about a lady being raped on her wedding night?" Sharon pressed. Peterson looked confused. "I have no idea about that." Sharon's heart raced. The man who raped her had the same tattoo as Peterson. She asked him about the tattoo on his chest, and he replied, "It's not a tattoo. It's a mark given to us by my cruel father, who hated us for being twins. In our community, twins are seen as an abomination." Sharon felt her heart sink. "You're a twin?" She knelt down and cried bitterly. "Why are you crying?" Peterson asked, concerned. "It happened a long time ago." Sharon looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "Your twin brother raped me." Peterson's eyes widened. "What? How do you know him?" Sharon recounted the painful events of that night. Peterson was shocked, his heart racing. He couldn't believe his brother could do something so terrible. "Please leave my house and my life," Sharon said. "Elle can't be with you knowing your brother hurt me." Furious, Peterson sped off to his brother's apartment, banging on the door with anger. When his brother finally opened it, Peterson punched him hard in the face. "What was that for?" his brother shouted, clutching his jaw in pain. Their mother came out of the kitchen trying to calm her sons down. "What's going on?" she asked, concerned. Peterson, filled with rage, yelled at his brother. "Do you know the day our mother gave birth to you was the worst day of my life?" This made their mother very upset. "You're saying this in my presence? Do you know the struggles I faced to raise you both?" she cried, tears streaming down her face. Peterson told his mother everything Sharon had shared with him, and he is at the point of losing her because of his twin brother's evil act. The tension in the room grew thick as secrets unfolded, and the family realized the pain they had to confront. Would you continue a relationship with someone whose sibling committed a heinous act, such as rape, that destroyed your marriage? Share your thoughts. Stay tuned for the next episode to find out what happens between Sharon, Peterson, and his twin brothers. Like, comment, and subscribe to join the conversation and support our growth.